Great. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Housing Advisory Board meeting for September 24th. We are now calling this meeting to order, and I'm going to do a roll call. Philip?
Here.
Lauren? Here. Michael?
Here.
Karen? Here. Karen? Here. Chip, are you dialing in?
I am here via Zoom. Sorry I cannot be there with you guys in person.
Okay, glad you're here. And Cindy, are you here as well? Okay, so now I'm going to review the agenda. We're going to approve the minutes from the last meeting. We will open it up to public participation. We will have matters from the board that will include the Bloomberg Harvard City Leadership Initiative process. We'll talk about the Boulder Valley Comp Plan. We will discuss HAB quarterly update to council. We will review our work plan. We will have matters from staff, and then final thoughts and suggestions, and hopefully adjourn at or prior to 9 p.m. So I would like a motion to approve the minutes. Okay. Lauren, are there any comments or corrections? Okay, all in favor of approving? Okay, Chip? Okay, I am abstaining because I missed the last meeting. Great, thank you. Can we open it up to, is there anyone who wants to participate from the public?
We do have a lot of members logged in.
Okay.
Go ahead and do the rules and see if anybody raises their hand.
All right.
All right, we just have a couple rules for community engagement. So the city has engaged with community members to co-create a vision for productive, meaningful, and inclusive civic conversations. This to support the physical and emotional safety of everyone involved. For more information, you can go to the city's website. And following examples are rules of decorum that are found in the Boulder Revised Code. These will be upheld by our chair during the meeting. So a couple examples, all remarks and testimony. We request be limited to matters related to city business. No participant shall make threats or use other forms of intimidation, obscenity, racial epithets, and other speech and behavior that disrupts or otherwise impedes the ability to conduct a meeting is absolutely prohibited. And then we do ask you to use your name that you're commonly known by, and please display that name if you're online. Currently, only audio testimony is permitted. And that's it.
Thank you.
So at this time, if you'd like to make a public comment, please use the Zoom raise your hand feature to be recognized. All right, Lynn. You're ready to go.
Yeah. I'm just getting out of the fire candidates forum, and something has got to be done about the housing situation here. I can't ever get to HAB meeting because I'm sorry, others conflict. I follow 5 boards: planning, OSBT, RAB, TAB, and landmarks. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
I'm sorry, because HAB is the most important, and tomorrow morning, there is a BARHA meeting that I've been excluded from, and that everyone who's not a landlord or a realtor, there's a sound here. I'm at the Canyon Theater, and everyone's been excluded. And as well, I believe some candidates have been excluded, as were at the fire meeting tonight. which is also a big issue for you as its habitation is have meeting. There were 3 people that were excluded from Bart Windstrom's private candidate forum. The BARHA, the most important issue we have in Boulder for the candidates to be vying for is housing. And there is no candidates forum on housing that is public. This is outrageous. And I'm surprised that your group hasn't done something about it. I can't go to the meeting. I tried to sign up. They refunded my money. They said, you can't go. And they've denied certain council people that are going to, potential counselors, candidates from going also. This is completely fascist and unacceptable. I suspect from what Bart said about the fire thing, it sounds like he was talking about the fire attack. Let me tell you something. I was 15 feet from the fire attack. I walked with them every month for a year, every week for a year. I walked behind them with my Palestinian flag and keffiyeh and my Free Palestine t-shirt and a picture of a dead baby. And if that guy that did the fire attack had never hurt anyone, he looked at me. He was intending to die himself too, but the fire blew back up on him. He ripped off his shirt, changed his plan. When he saw me, he did not deploy those other 16 Molotovs that would have killed me and everyone else in that group, not just Karen. So this is a big deal in this community. It's overwhelming. And you got to do something about housing issues.
Thank you.
Lenore, I just
Tiffany, are there other speakers from the public?
I told them what happened tonight here.
Good.
And I said, this is a big issue for Boulder.
No one else has raised their hands.
Okay, we're going to close public participation. And we are now going to switch to matters from the board. So we would love to hear from the folks who are going to talk about the Bloomberg Harvard City Leadership Initiative process and final portfolio of ideas. So Holly?
All right, here I go.
Yay, thank you.
Thanks for having me here tonight. All right, so I'm Holly Henderson. I'm with Housing and Human Services City, and I'm here to talk about our innovation track. So the full name of this is quite a mouthful, as you saw in your notes. It's the Bloomberg Harvard City Leadership Initiative Innovation Track. It was a year-long intensive leadership and management program, and it was hosted by Bloomberg Philanthropies, Harvard University, the Center for Public Impact, and the Bloomberg Center for Public Innovations. Okay, I think that's naming everyone I need to. So the process here went that mayors were invited to apply for the program and then choose a key priority for the city to tackle during this process. So before I go into all the details, so I'll just say tonight I'm going to talk about the whole process. So we were engaged with it for about 9 months. And so there's a lot of details. There's a lot of process to cover, which I think the process is really important in all of this, but maybe it's oversharing or maybe it's undersharing. So if there's any questions throughout, please just let me know. So I'll just start up on this process. So throughout this program, we followed this path to public innovation. So it was very intentional, very prescriptive path for how we're looking at creating innovative solutions to key priority issues. So I won't get into the details here. I kind of reference it throughout kind of which stage we were when we're talking about the process here, but I wanted to highlight it here to emphasize 2 things. One thing is that underlaid in all of this is like the resident voice and the resident experience. So our task was really to figure out how to highlight and lift up that resident voice that we may not have typically incorporated in some of our solution findings. And then the second thing I'll emphasize here is that it is prescriptive. The path was very prescriptive. No matter how hard we tried, we couldn't incorporate any creative or different ways to go about the process. So we were really like to say dragged, very, very closely dragged along this, whether we liked it or not. So, so all of these, it was a very specific, intentional path we were brought on here. So,
Can I just ask a quick question? Were they testing out methodologies or?
were they already tested methodologies?
Yeah, or were they testing out this particular methodology?
This had been done, so we were the 8th court.
Oh, wow,
So
okay.
they had done it 7
Okay,
previous
got it. That
times.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cities all over the world.
Yeah. Which was really fun. There were cities from New Zealand and Canada. So the top of this, I guess you can't really see the little path, my little path to innovation up top here, but the very top of this was to identify an ambitious impact mission. This was done, I think back in October, so almost a year ago, and this was the defined ambitious impact mission. This was our North Star throughout the whole process. We were just referring to this to make sure that all of our work was informed by this mission statement. So that is by 2035, we will expand and sustain innovative, attainable housing options so that Boulder becomes a more vibrant and inclusive community reflecting people from all backgrounds. Along with identifying that aim statement at the very beginning, we needed a team to do it within the city. So because it was housing related, 3 of us at HHS were tapped to be on this core team. But we also had team members from utilities, the city team, our city team made up of these people. So from people from Stephanie Klingman from utilities, Charles Farrow from PDNS, Sam Bromberg from Community Vitality. And then on our core group that we regularly met with, Chris Meschuk, and then Mike Giansanti and Richard Todd from their IT department. So it was really a wide, we had representation and such different perspectives than I think we typically get from when we're working with HHS. So the next phase under this, so the second phase of this process was the design phase. We called this kind of our research sprint. So in this research sprint, we created a problem frame out of that aim statement. And we did a lot of work designing specific research methods to answer that, to be responsive to that aim, and also to center that resident voice. And then we did the research. So the research involved, we conducted 32 interviews with different community members. One of them was a focus group with the Older Adult Advisory Committee, which we have one of those members here, which is super exciting. We had lots of conversations with family members with kids in Boulder Valley School District. And then a lot of the development community, developers, architects. And then we also tapped in commuters to get the voice of who was not actually living here because of these housing challenges.
Philip too.
Yes. And then, so we gathered just hundreds and hundreds of points of data. Along with this, in this research sprint, we also collected all the secondary research that we had at our fingertips already. So we took all these data points as a team. We funneled them down to top different themes that we saw throughout. And then using those themes, we funneled it even more to identify our research insights. So these are our 7 research insights that came directly from our research sprint. that was kind of designed to be responsive of our aim. So I will read those and then kind of provide some context of what they mean. So the first one here is the road to Boulder's housing crisis was paved with good intentions. So whether that be environmental protection, reducing sprawl, or preserving open space, those all had very good intentions behind them, but have caused a lot of problems with housing and housing affordability within the city. The second one here is to meet our housing goals, we must release control. So this control was conceptualized in two ways. The first one was government control. Like as a government, we need to figure out how to release some of that regulatory control, but also as a community, community members, you know, this gets straight to like the NIMBY sentiments. The third one, desirable housing types must be the easiest and most profitable option for developers. If we have as a city a specific type or specific types of housing that we want to see, we have to figure out how to make it profitable. People aren't going to do it for altruistic reasons. So we really have to kind of make those incentives or those financial incentives obvious. The fourth one here is remaining opportunity sites to develop may be our last best hope. So this sentiment, I think, came a lot from our development community in terms of like, there's a lot of opportunities in those last big sites. So let's think about that as we move forward here when we're thinking about solutions for middle income housing. The fifth one, Boulder is exclusive. We need meaningful leadership to change that trajectory. I think this one kind of speaks for itself. Like it's not going to change unless somebody speaks out to help to kind of make that change. And then the final two are my favorite. So the sixth one here is Boulder's housing should be as creative and interesting as its people. So this kind of gets to the point where maybe there was some sentiment that a lot of the development looks the same. A lot of our community members that kind of bring that eccentricity can't afford to live here. So how do we kind of bring that creativity back to the city? And then finally, when sudden or big life events happen, folks should be able to make the choice to stay in Boulder. So we heard this sentiment from families, growing families that households that are having more kids. And we also heard it from people like who have recently been divorced, you know, like that's a huge life change, very disruptive. How can we make it more reasonable for them to stay? Because that is a big life change. It's very disruptive. So those were our research insights, and I'll just so we shopped this around with a few different groups, and somebody wrote me this little sticky in one of our ideation sessions, and so I just wanted to share it with you here to say at least some of our community members feels like these research insights are perceptive and kind of getting that voice. So very motivating sticky.
I sat through one of these sessions.
Yes, yeah.
And there were so many ideas. So to be able to synthesize this, I think this is something.
So I remember you participated in one of our ideation sessions.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, is that different than?
That is
Okay,
the
got
next
it.
step
Okay.
here. So
Okay.
so after we developed these research insights, we participated or went into this like on our little path here, still in kind of the design phase of, okay, great, you have new insights. The whole idea here is to get new ideas to test. So let's brainstorm with the different community members, kind of leaning on these insights to create those new ideas. So in our ideation session, which you were part of one of these, we had 4 of these sessions with over 50 participants. We went to the Boulder Housing Fair and kind of ideated with residents there, housing advocates and advisory group members. We had one with we opened one of these sessions to all city staff. And then the developer, kind of the development community, again, the developers, architects and financiers.
Can I,
Yes, please.
how were people invited or reached out to for, I get the city staff one, but and maybe the second one, advocates and advisory group members. But where you've got like developers, architects, how did that community know that there was a meeting?
We reached out in a variety of ways, and I was not in charge of the session with developers, architects, and do you remember the outreach strategy?
Yeah, it
for
wasn't,
that?
I mean, if what you're getting at, it wasn't like a broad open invitation to everybody. It was sort of targeted towards people that, you know, we do work with quite a bit.
It's kind of exclusive in that way.
It does sound exclusive if I put it that way.
Because, yeah, so.
So the
That's open
challenge,
for the
that
future.
was a challenge for this whole process, is how do you,
If we want to include the people who aren't normally included, you better look outside of the normal ways you interact with people. I guess is the point I'd like to make sure we take away from this.
and we tried different, that's why we did the housing fair. So that was a way to get to people that normally wouldn't participate in the city process. City staff, and then of course, our boards and commissions.
So this was just a snapshot or just some pictures and visuals for what like an ideation session actually looks like. You know, we had a presentation, had some kind of prompts on the wall, stickies everywhere, and then dot votings to, you know, somebody referred to it as the dreaded dot votes to get the group to prioritize some of the ideas on the board. So throughout that process, we had over 800 ideas to sort through and to prioritize. And the goal here was that we had 8 to 10 initiatives for our final portfolio. So this was a task, and we had to prioritize and kind of filter the ideas through the first way we filtered these ideas were high impact. Which of these ideas would really have an impact on that aim, the North Star we were going for. And then we looked at a balance of ideas that which ones are feasible, which ones are practical, which ones kind of have more boldness to them, more exciting. So we kind of used these different ways to create, you know, prioritize all of those ideas. And so we selected 10 ideas, and we were tasked in this process again, in this, our little path up here. We were tasked after we identified those 10 ideas for our portfolio to prototype 2 of them. So now we're like getting into the act phase stage. So it's like, great, you have ideas, what to do now with those ideas. So we prototyped 2 ideas, and I'm gonna let Jay talk about the first one, not because it's super exciting, but because I was not involved in this one, but Jay was.
I think it's super exciting.
No, it's a little too exciting, I think.
So this is, we got a lot of community interest in this one. So recognizing, you know, that we can't continue to grow out, we're basically space constrained. What if we grew up more? And sort of questions around. And there are a lot of different ways to think about this. So this actually unpeeled a lot of other issues, like ground floor retail came up as a big concern. And the over-reliant or the not, potentially we shouldn't be requiring ground floor retail everywhere because we're not able to support it. But the height issue was, it's also related to design. So a lot of the, you know, what we hear from the community is we're tired of these boxy buildings. And a lot of times that's because of the height limit, right? So if there was additional height allowed, you might get more interesting and different roof forms. So that's another example. And then there are different gradations too, like potentially what if we revisited the charter amendment of the 55-foot height limit? So that would obviously require a vote of everybody in Boulder. But there's also the option of potentially just increasing height throughout the city in different places.
So this is an example, and we'll talk a little bit later of, trying to feed what we learned into the comprehensive plan process. So we can talk about that.
So the second idea we prototyped was more conceptual, and it was trying to get at the point of this, like, so there's a lot of existing units, existing single family units, and there's these demographic trends of older adults in the community. We looked at some stats, and I didn't write it down, but it was something like 50% of the single family housing units in the city are owned by households with folks over 60 years old. So there's these demographic pressures, and is there anything that the city can do to kind of convert some of those existing units that we know will kind of change hands in the near future into long-term attainable or affordable units? So this is a conceptual idea. We were like, we don't know what's going to happen. So we tested this idea. We did 3 different prototyping sessions. One was 2 were at the Agewell centers. One was at Agewell West, and we did one at Agewell East, or the East Boulder Community Center. And then we also held a prototyping session with it was like tax accountants and just different people involved with estate planning, I'll say. And so this one in itself, because it's conceptual, I don't think had very tangible results like onto the idea itself. But once I get into the final ideas portfolio that we have, it did influence kind of how we were thinking. So we took that, and there were some great ideas and great learnings that we had from it, that we said, hey, actually, that is an idea that we can actually think we can explore implementing within the city. So I can't say we like figured out how to convert these units to attainable units, but there were some great conversations, and we learned some great things from these conversations.
Holly, regarding the reverse mortgages, is that something that a city policy can affect, or is that really only an arrangement between a private homeowner and their bank?
Yeah, so that was one of the ideas. We had like different idea cards that people, said, hey, what do you think about like the idea of the city being involved? It's like a reverse mortgage, but without the predator, right? So we didn't go down the path of exploring like whether, like how to do it, because there was a pretty negative reaction to that idea at all. When we prototyped with older adults, and even with some of the tax accountants, it was like, with some of it, there was one person, a banker, that was like very excited about it, but the other, like, there was such a visceral reaction to like, that is a terrible idea. The city should never be involved in it. We did not pursue it anymore. So that was kind of one of these things where we just learned from it.
You got positive reactions to discussing the sacred issue of height limits?
Yeah.
More positive than, yeah.
It's
great.
fascinating.
Yeah.
We also got some pushback, but I think most people recognize that, a little bit of extra height might not be a bad thing for Boulder. And it supports all of our other goals, right? In terms of transportation, climate, walkable neighborhoods, 15-minute neighborhoods.
Were the projects that have been granted height modifications to go up to 55 feet? Were those results looked at, and did people say, yeah, we want more of that? Given that's what happens when we do grant height modifications.
We didn't do a visual preference survey. It was just very initial.
This is the
conversations.
results,
We
if
showed
you're
some
saying
images.
short equals boxy, tall equals what, bigger boxy? I'm just curious as to how that conversation was supported with the fact that we do have a mechanism for granting height variances right now. And is it leading us to get more of what we actually want? That would be good information to have at the table.
No, we didn't. I mean, it wasn't that sophisticated of a conversation. Honestly, but I think there was interest in exploring. And I think part of it is, what ran through the entire innovation track was this idea of by right versus discretionary review. And a lot of concern that discretionary review is what's causing a lot of our increase in costs in terms of time. And just holding costs.
Was that kind of across the board from all the different groups? Or just was that mostly from the developers and architects and that professional group?
I would say, yeah, people who are familiar with development.
Okay, so now we can reveal our idea portfolio. So I will, at the top, these are the 5 ideas that we at HHS are very comfortable and think that we can kind of push forward that align with, work plans, and kind of the ones that we can own within HHS. And in the packet, there's a list of the other ideas that are in our total portfolio from the whole process, but some of them are kind of just not in we just can't do them at HHS. So this is what us at HHS, we are pushing forward as our final ideas portfolio. So the first one is city-supported affordable childcare. Now, throughout this whole process, nobody in our team could spend more than 5 minutes with me without me complaining about childcare. So there's some of my bias going into this for sure. But we heard certainly from the ideation sessions, especially with city staff, that oftentimes within households, when you have kids, the mortgage isn't the biggest line item. It's the childcare. So we lifted this up in our portfolio as obviously not directly relating to affordable housing with the city, but when we're looking at goals of like affordable living more broadly, that this should be focused on. So the idea here is somehow exploring opportunities and barriers to provide city-supported childcare spaces and programs. So we don't really know exactly what that looks like. Again, you're going to hear, I will say that for all of these. So the next step here is to just explore different approaches that the city may take to do this. Specifically, we're kind of looking in, I've met with some of my HHS colleagues that are already in this childcare scene, and specifically looking at like the supply demand dynamics that have changed since COVID and then since the universal pre-K program was implemented. So like the scene has changed and just figuring out where the supply pressures are and where those demand pressures are. So that's our first idea at HHS. So the second idea here came from, so it's city-supported affordable assisted living. So when we were during our ideation sessions, and I think even just like the research phase of this, we had a focus group with Older Adult Advisory Committee, and it was revealed to us that there are no Medicaid beds available, assisted care Medicaid beds within the city. And I did some more digging, and it turns out that in the whole county, there are only 48 assisted living beds certified for Medicaid. So 48 in all of Boulder County. So it seems like a huge gap. Really surprising, I think, for myself. And so the idea here is just figuring out how to have, just exploring the possibility of developing a city-supported affordable assisted care living facility. So one that offers like the affordable housing component, but also there's a service delivery component as well.
Which isn't that different than the permanent supportive housing model. So can you use like low income housing tax credits?
If you have a service provider.
Yes. So our next step for this, I think we're really excited about this to figure out if we can help fill this gap with using our, at the city here. But we just like, I don't know. I have no idea how to do this. I don't know if other places have done it. I don't know if there is, options to provide that like what kind of service option would be available within the
There's
city.
There's a program called the Greenhouse Program. Have you heard of that, Jen? There's one that, I don't know if it was Longmont or Loveland Housing Authority, but there's one up in Loveland.
Okay,
It's like
see,
the-
there we go.
It's the continuation or it's the scale of affordable LIHTC housing all the way up to assisted living. And so I think it was Loveland Housing Authority because Sam Betters developed it. But yeah, they navigated that Medicaid assisted living component of it. So that might be just something to look into.
Absolutely, yes.
And I'll try and think of other models.
Okay, and you may have just volunteered yourself for another session. So this is great. So yes, there must be models out there that we can look to towards. And I think the question is like whether we can do it here, given the resources and all the rest. So that's number 2. So the next idea here is home sharing. So we heard from, I feel like this came up in almost every ideation session that we had. And in a lot of the conversations we had at the beginning, like doing interviews with the residents, it's just this idea of home sharing. So looking for ways for people, figuring out how to partner with a nonprofit organization that helps people looking to stay in their homes but are having difficulty with daily tasks or isolation or whatever other reason while living alone is just not working anymore. Kind of figuring out how to find an organization to like support linking people up for home sharing. This one feels a little less technical, but it's just, we have to figure out the avenues for the ways for the city to be involved in this. And we know that there's a Sunshine Home Share Colorado network that already exists. And so maybe it's just figuring out how to tap into that.
Do you think that CU would be interested in partnering in that at all? No, we've got other countries and it's like college students and older folks.
Yeah, it's possible. Absolutely. Yeah. Involving CU.
That's a great thing about if you did partner with a nonprofit, that they could actually provide, that outreach to different organizations to try to promote the program. And because it's a great housing option for students. And it's not, and that's the thing, it's not just for students or older adults. I think it could apply to anybody.
Right.
Any single adult or, smaller household in a big house.
So the next idea here is expanding the housing legacy program. So this idea came directly from that prototyping session, the single family conversion prototyping session. So the housing legacy program, the city facilitates the donation of homes to our affordable homeownership program. And when we were talking to estate planners, tax accountants, many of them pointed to this and said, hey, this is a great idea. What are the tax implications of this? And I said, I don't know. That's a great question. And so I think when we started thinking about it more, just figuring out ways, maybe identifying partnerships with a nonprofit entity to create just like a more obvious financial incentives to participate. Like, what are those implications for your taxes, and can a nonprofit pass through or something like this make it more attractive to participate? So yeah, that came from exactly, and I think this is like it came from a prototyping session, and this is like the essence of this program. It's like, we're not going to have the best idea first, and it's okay to say, okay, that one didn't work. This one is much better and one that we can actually play a role in. All right, and then the fifth and final one that we at Keoka Housing and Human Services have in our portfolio. Now there's been all sorts of names for this idea, and I've fallen on the name of diverse financing options, which isn't as attractive as the first name, which was the Big Beautiful Bank of Boulder, but I just was not comfortable with it, so I changed it to be a little bit more boring. But this idea stems from the fact that LIHTC is really a really great tool for affordable housing and affordable housing development, but it's like one of the only tools. And so are there other ways the city can create some financing tools for developments that offer housing at below market rate? Some of the stickies I've pulled from, we had, this whole like electronic board that I pulled just to support kind of the concept here is that offer low-cost financing options for affordable development. So like as a city, can we figure out how to do that? And then this one was like, they're the Big Beautiful Bank of Boulder. It's a city-run real estate brokerage and bank. All commissions and profits roll into subsidizing housing. I.e. the real estate industry would love this. So again, kind of in the vein of like, we're not actually sure where this will land, but our next step is to talk to local CDFIs, so community development financial institutions, to figure out if there's just ways we should be thinking about partnering them with them that would be, offer more and more benefits. So that's where we are with our 5 ideas that I think at HHS that we're like really thinking about moving forward. The other ideas that I've listed here, there's more details in your packet about just not too many details, just a little bit of details, because some of these are like at their infancy here. But reconsider height limitations, which Jay talked about, doing a regulatory analysis on the actual cost of some of these regulations. So not just looking at the regulations and seeing what exists, but kind of like putting a dollar sign next to each one of them. Limiting discretionary development review for residential buildings, flexible design for a more inclusive city. Again, not exactly sure where that lands, but kind of figuring out how to create more flexible design. Limiting maximum home size. And then the last one is a land equity fund. So we at HHS aren't really going to be pushing these forward, but the rest of the team that we worked with, there's kind of next steps that they've identified to kind of push some of these, or at least think about how to iterate on the first idea and to how this would actually be feasible. Okay. So that's all I have. So again, in our little paths to public innovation, we're really trying to figure out how to like ingrain this in the culture at HHS, this like innovative ways to push ideas forward. So we're going to be refining these ideas using a similar path, like the similar like prototyping, ideation, to try to really move the needle on some of this, and then planning on implementing some of them, hopefully in the short term. And then the discussion that we're hoping to have at least a little bit here is, where do you all think we should go from here? I like to think it's like, is there anything that you think is just like a terrible idea, or ideas that we could kind of explore even more from this? So yeah, like let's just open it up to what you all think.
I'm curious that second list of some of the other ideas. I wonder if any of those, it would make sense to bump up into the top 5 because they seem a little more more easily attainable. Like was that a part of the process of figuring out like the top 5 things that we're gonna try and push through.
So the top 5, so one thing that I think the regulatory analysis has been identified as something that planning and development may pursue in terms of their work plan.
Okay.
So that's one that that's on them.
Yeah.
Like that is not an analysis that would naturally live within HHS.
Okay.
And then the height limitation, I think we've been connecting with the comprehensive planning team on how that can be incorporated, like these discussions can be incorporated and have some information. Yeah.
Sure, yeah, we've been doing some community engagement on this topic, and we've asked a question related to height in the statistically valid survey, which went out on Monday. 15. Oh, and a companion survey, which was published on Monday. So we'll have some statistically valid input on that particular question next month.
If there are specific ideas that you want to advocate for,
Yeah, that's helpful to have that.
certainly can.
Do you have a list of the first 5 that we could refresh our memories?
No. Childcare, assisted living, home sharing, the legacy program, and then the financing options.
Does other city departments have their own portfolios, different ideas?
Not yet. We're the first ones.
You're ahead of the game.
Yeah. we're gonna get-
And what would are we done with Bloomberg? Is now this information ours to digest and move forward?
Yes, as far as I know, I'm done with Bloomberg. No, we are, I think that the program has ended, so it is ours to take forward.
What's how's this going to get translated into the policy, if you could ballpark that? Policy proposals, I should say.
No.
What Holly tried to lay out is those 5 HHS items. We are incorporating those into our work in some shape or form and trying to sort of embody the whole spirit of innovation, right? So what we learned in that process. So to me, the Bloomberg process was less about generating an idea, but training certain muscles to think different.
Right.
And to be more innovative in government.
We're going to require policy approval at different levels, certainly council.
Exactly. So, I mean, one strategy that I've been trying to think through is what if some of these get traction with city council members and they identify it as a council priority next February? That'd be fantastic.
Hey guys, this is Chip. Thank you for the very good presentation. I like the idea of thinking outside the box and thinking creatively. I like the idea of thinking about maybe Medicare beds and how the city can, I guess, encourage that or facilitate that process. And that might address the issue of older people staying in their homes. You know, if there's not an affordable place to move on to from a single family house, they might stay there and seek home care when perhaps they would prefer to be in a facility. I don't know. I know as a board, we've somewhat danced around the idea of focusing in more on our senior population and their needs. So maybe that's an action item we can add. I will say I really do not like the reverse mortgage idea. I think it could sow mistrust in the community, because basically in order to effectively run a reverse mortgage program, you got to foreclose on people when they die or what have you. And I think that could stir up very negative emotions towards the city. I also just think financial institutions like banks are just better equipped to do it more efficiently, and they're good at that. So let them do what they're able to do. But overall, thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you for summarizing exactly what we heard from the focus groups. Chip.
Two comments. One is my favorite of these five would be no surprise is the sharing housing one. And if you didn't know, in March, we had a panel on this subject, and I don't know if you familiarized yourself with anything that unfolded there, but we had some really great panelists, and I'd be happy to share, if you want to have a conversation offline about what we learned and what's possible. Love to talk, but kind of in short summary, we have lots of large houses occupied by one or two people. There's a bunch of large houses that are empty, but to target the folks that live by themselves who maybe feel a cultural pressure to not have housemates or have financial pressure to maintain a large yard and all the maintenance that goes with it. And then just the notion that we have all these climate controlled bedrooms that are already available. It would be great to, find, we did a ton of work to make this possible through the Bedrooms Are for People campaign and the occupancy limit restriction reform, all that stuff. And I think that with a little bit of money, you could go a really long ways towards educating and promoting and providing a service that would, I feel like there's a kind of untapped demand for this sort of thing that with some education and with a little bit of incentive, it could just unleash. And I think the order of magnitude of number of empty bedrooms is in the tens of thousands. And so it could have a really big impact I don't think you need tens of millions of dollars to put up a program. I think you could kick something off meaningful for less than $1 million would be my guess. But so I want to just put a plug in that I love the sharing housing idea, the home sharing idea. A comment about the first one about childcare. This is not something I know much about, but I'll just kind of share one little bit of insight that might be helpful. And that is when I was in grad school, I had my first child when I was in grad school, and it doesn't matter when. But we lived at Smiley Court at 30th in Colorado. And when my kids were really young, and it's amazing how the cost changes from when you're trying to run a single family home in a suburban style sprawl environment out in Broomfield where we were for a while, and you have to have a nanny or you have to drive to a daycare and you do the drop off, and there's so much expense involved because it's not a scalable way. It's not a reasonable way for, to make every family have enough income to do all these things by themselves. At 30th in Colorado at Smiley Court, there's a ton of young families there because these are young people typically going through grad school. They're often married and having young children. And I just think it's really kind of like if you've never lived in a community like that, the potential and the possibilities for shared labor, in raising kids, just there's I don't know what, it's not a multiplier effect, but there's a lot of efficiency that comes with having lots of families together with lots of adults and sharing those responsibilities. So I think the notion that you would just throw a bunch of money at childcare so that people can keep doing the same financially unsustainable things that they've been doing in terms of the suburban model for a nuclear family. I would just like to encourage you to kind of couple that with the structures that families are living in so that, there's walkability to a care center, or there's more possibility for shared resources and shared care. So, yeah.
I was born into Smiley Court.
Oh, no kidding.
Um,
Daughter.
And
Big
so
reveal.
my parents were in grad school at CU and we lived there and I asked my parents all like, how did you guys afford this? And they had like, there was 2 or 3 moms at Smiley Court that just shared, everybody pitched in a day or 2. And it was like this very community centric way of doing childcare. But I just wanted to offer that.
It's super good.
I know exactly the model. And I live 5 blocks away from it now, so it's
I have an additional comment and build upon what folks said a little bit. I was impressed that nothing in the portfolio says go out and build more housing. It's all plated services, which again, you're thinking outside the box, so it's great. My mind is starting to turn about like what are the possibilities here. So like we have a lot of vacant retail space. Could some of that become childcare centers in multifamily neighborhoods? You know, we don't get a lot of families living in our multifamily developments now. Apparently, I think I heard there's only a few children in Boulder Junction, for example. So I think that's a real opportunity for creativity. I don't know how involved BHP was with this process. I suspect it probably vary, but you know, they offer different types of services within their housing, and maybe some of these services could be incorporated, like more childcare, like assisted living. I think it's great stuff. The Housing Legacy Program, to my understanding, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that it's very low use. So I don't know what the potential there is. Maybe there's only 1 or 2 homes that are on the docket to be donated.
I like to say that we have,
Certainly worth
yeah,
promoting and thinking about, but it could be that maybe has less potential than some of the other ideas.
yeah.
On the list. So I think it's some good stuff here.
I was gonna say some very similar things to what Michael was saying. I think BHP would be an amazing partner for the childcare. In a lot of their properties, they already have the Bringing School Home program. As someone with a young child, I get how expensive it is. And the Universal Preschool program was a savior for me, so 3 and older. But so I think targeting this for less than 3 years old is really good. So I love that, and I think it's fascinating that that 50% of the homes in Boulder are owned by older adults, and so I don't know what to do about that. But
Single family
yeah,
homes too. Like these.
I think that that's just so fascinating, and I think there is great opportunity there. So
I was younger when I bought my home.
I think that's in large part because if you bought it 30 years ago, it was more affordable
Sure,
than if you drive
absolutely.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So thank you. I love what you've done here.
So I would echo that. I think this is great, very interesting. I know that the city has affordability goals that we are moving towards. To me, and so I feel confident that we will reach the what is it, 15% goal. I think what I'm more worried about is the missing middle and how do we bring more families into Boulder? And I'm sort of surprised, it doesn't seem like there's as much of this that focuses on getting families here.
You don't think that's this first one, though?
Yes, but that's 1 of 5. I don't really feel like. And I don't know what the solution is, but sort of.
Well, they didn't want to include our problem statement, but our problem statement actually was more focused on that sort of missing middle. So what we tried to do, I tried to steer the conversation in a certain direction. So keep in mind that the whole purpose of this is we have an interdisciplinary team. So we had folks from utilities, from community vitality, CMO, IT, know nothing about housing. And then there were just a couple of us that actually had some housing expertise. So we were the villains of innovation because we were like, oh yeah, we've tried that before, didn't work. Things like that. And to me, the aim statement is so broad. It's like solving world peace. It's like, so I was trying to get us more focused. And I was trying to get people to focus on homeownership, but I got a lot of pushback on that.
Did any of the other cities focus on the missing middle? Like, could you make it attractive enough that you don't necessarily need to own a house, but you can attract families to move into a rental single family home or a rental apartment with more amenities? Or, yeah, I just feel like that is something I really would like to see more focus on. Otherwise, I really worry that like the great schools that we have are gonna not be utilized.
Yeah, I think when we were going throughout the process, like the ideation sessions and some of our research questions that we formed were about this missing middle, and some of them were even like to get that to that point about like the American dream, like why, like kind of what can we disrupt or change about the American dream where rental is a totally fine option in the city. And some ideas like this land equity fund came out of that concept being like, well, people want to invest, but investing in homes isn't the only way to make money. And then things like this diverse financing options kind of gets to the missing middle of like, let's figure out ways to actually make it more financially feasible to create the types of housing we want to see.
And I think it's interesting that you've kind of turned it on its head and you're looking at other reasons why it's expensive to live in Boulder. And so if you can reduce cost of childcare, if you can reduce your commuting costs, then are you willing to spend more money, a little bit more money on housing? Because it's not that much more expensive in Boulder than it is in Brookfield, right? But if you're able to save in other aspects of your life, I don't know. It's worth it to me to live in Boulder.
Has anyone commented on this slide yet? I really like it. It seems like when I used to work at the National Trust for Historic Preservation, they had a revolving fund. Gave money to groups restoring facades and they increased value of the buildings and they paid you back and then you gave money out again. You know, it's kind of a net zero financial model for the lender. But I wonder if that could even be extended to offer much lower interest mortgages for home buyers. I don't see the current subsidy for down payments being super useful because housing is so expensive. But the difference between getting a 3% mortgage and a 6% mortgage, it's a huge impact on your buying power. So take the idea, blow it up, make it bigger.
Yeah. One of the ideas that I've had in my mind about this is there's different countries that do this. Like LIHTC doesn't exist in other countries. It is very specific here, and other countries have affordable housing. So there's tools that like Austria uses in terms of like creating low cost financing as a stable source for affordable developments throughout the country. But yeah, like this idea of there's different ideas out there.
So I'm really intrigued with the idea that this was all about innovation. And I think Phil mentioned something that to me maybe is a piece that can be looked at through these 5 lenses. And that is, how do you change people's behavior? Because, right now, you mentioned it, the American dream, you get your little turf, you build your, it's like that ship sailed. And how do we begin to change the model so that the collective, a lot of these are about let's share, whether it's our home, whether it's our money, whether it's give away our house, whatever. That's changing behavior at a fundamental level because it's going to maybe trick back to how we live and how we use land. So if I were you all, I would put a lens on this that would say what behavior changes need to be encouraged to get success out of each of these 5 things. Look at them with that idea. Because to me, that's where innovation happens, is people change. People change, then stuff changes. Gotta change the people first, so. Excellent, process and work, how exciting to have gotten to do it. I'm intrigued with the fact that you're tasked with this resulting in something innovative. And again, that happens when we change.
Yeah.
So,
If I can just, on that idea of behavior change, so when we prototype this idea of this conversion of existing units, we went to the Age Well West and the East Boulder Community Center to get feedback from older adults, because this is kind of like in that category of like what could change the behavior to make sure these homes can be affordable. And I have to say, they were very uncomfortable conversations, but the idea that the city should be involved in helping change that behavior or helping change the outcome and the decision making for these older adults. And it was one of these things we learned from this was like, wow, we need to figure out how to like reframe some of the work that we're doing as like we're not doing this. We're not the behavior changers or but I think that's a very powerful lens to see things through. But as a city, we're kind of playing a role that some people don't want, like there's a line there that some people don't want the city to cross.
I think you're talking about an issue that really happens a lot in my profession in architecture. People are used to seeing things and being exposed to the things that they're used to being exposed to. And if you want to put something new on the table, you show them something radically different. And, most of the time in design, whether it's city planning or building planning, you show them, the world has got incredible examples of just about anything going on. You show them that, people go, oh, I didn't know that that's what a green roof looked like, or, oh, I wasn't sure, what this is. And all of a sudden that, that hesitancy to change or to consider something different, show them a really wonderful example of it. And then people aren't afraid, because we're afraid of what we don't know. And if all we know is, then the government comes in and then I'm screwed. Change that model and show them something beautiful.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, we went to Austria and saw this example of it. It exists.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that tends to limit us is we're referencing in our mind, what is home sharing? Do I really want a university student in my house? And show them good examples.
Yeah.
And models, and they exist.
Sure.
But that's, I think, part of behavior changing is people need to start seeing something in a different way. And you have, all the capacity to start putting that forward, because you know how to research and find stuff.
Process too here. Yeah.
I love the idea of change, and I wasn't at your West Center meeting. I would have been the one to say, wait a minute, show me what this looks like. Who are these people?
I have a question. I'm curious about the demographic of the people. I think it's great how you kind of had different cross sections of people involvement, but I'd be curious about your demographics, because I think about for many younger folks, home ownership is not a huge priority, or it's not as much of a priority as it is for somebody in their 40s or 50s. Like there's a generational difference, right? And so just curious, do you happen to know?
We did not.
Are you able to
track
corral any?
We did not track the demographics. The process was like way too fast to track all of that. We did talk to, I wouldn't say any like younger, like college students. I think the younger demographic we talked to were like parents, kids at BBSD. Like that's the demographic, but that demographic is like squarely in this generation of like stability, possibly seeking ownership, but not all of them were. And we actually, the group I was involved in interviewing, we talked to a lot of BVSD connected families, and they were immigrants. And they were, because of their like recent moving to the city, immigration of like various reasons, were not interested in ownership. So they were very interested in just the rental and the BHP options. And, yeah.
I can offer my perspective as a 34-year-old who has other friends who are, you know, professionals, live in Boulder in their 30s. I think a lot of people, you know, my age do want to buy a home. The housing units that are like in our price range tend to be older, very old condos. And I think there's a feeling that they carry with them a lot of risk. You know, if I need to resell this, will someone buy it? What are the HOA fees? How much is the HOA invested in this old building? Are there going to be big assessments coming up? So I think there's an aversion to kind of the older condos that are in our price range. And also, I think part of it too, the sense I get from a lot of people is we've been living in apartments for 15 years, you know, since we went off to college. And if we're going to spend our hard-earned money to invest and buy something, we want a yard, even if it's a small one. So, you know, I basically we're all priced out of the single family homes in Boulder. We don't qualify for BHP. These we make too much money. And I'd say like the housing stock that is somewhat affordable, the old condos are just not appealing to a lot of, I guess, my friends. That's just my perspective.
I've heard that a lot.
But didn't you get at that? With one of the early slides where you talked about creative design solutions.
Yeah.
Like you could have a townhouse with a yard, doesn't have to be a, you know, 8-story apartment building. Courtyard housing, for example.
Yeah, and one of the, I know we had this conversation within this process, and one of the insights is, let me just refer back to it so I don't mess it up. Desirable housing types must be the easiest and most profitable options for developers. So if, you know, if this is like a sentiment that we should be listening to, it's like, you know, we want yards, we want that space, then we have to figure out how to make it more desirable. I mean, not more desirable. If that's a desirable housing, we have to figure out how to make it more of a reasonable option to develop.
And
I do think there is desire for the townhomes, you know, in addition to getting a little yard out in the front of the back. You also don't necessarily have a big HOA presence. You might have like a shared wall agreement. You know, there's not common hallways that need to be maintained. There may still be an HOA, but I guess the more like communal burden when we're talking about like the real property aspect of how much you have to pay to an HOA and deal with all of that is going to be less with a townhome than it might be with a, you know, a standard type of condo complex with indoor hallways and the like.
And just to reiterate the whole point. And so the cheapest or the most profitable thing for a developer to build right now are single family. They're going to get the biggest return on their investment, or multifamily. So all the stuff in between basically is a huge disincentive for any builder in Boulder to build.
And new townhomes that are being built in Boulder are not even remotely affordable.
Yeah,
So,
that's the other challenge.
yeah.
Right now, they're not. That's what I keep saying.
I mean, even a 25-year-old townhome in Boulder is not affordable. So, to me, at least.
I have a different question. So you mentioned that Boulder was like the 8th city from all over the world or whatever. What else are the other cities observations or insights shared with Boulder? Like do the cities share information, and can we learn from what other cities have discovered?
We can. There was like a share out at the very end of the program. When I wasn't there, so I don't know if you want to say anything.
Keep in mind, we were the only ones that did housing affordability. So it's
Yeah.
a full range of topics that any local city or any city challenge might have. So a bunch did stuff on homelessness. One did, how do we get snow off power lines so they don't cause power failures? So things are like super specific.
Yes.
Whereas ours was like this huge.
Oh, okay. I guess I didn't realize.
This was a point, like, I think as a city team, we took on so much more than the other teams took on. Because some of them were like, how do we create, like, not to put a dig, it was like, how do we create this space in our town? How do we make this specific space more activated? And then we're like, they're sweating over here trying to figure out middle of the thing.
And it wasn't just 8 other cities, so there were 8 cohorts over. I mean, each cohort has like 20 different cities.
Yes.
So we're talking
Wow.
dozens.
Okay.
So this is something that they replicate every year. And they actually do, I think they're doing multiple a year now, 2 a year or something.
Yeah.
It seems like with that many iterations of it, surely there's gotta be another city that did something with housing.
There was, Boise, Idaho did it a few years ago, and they looked mainly at, maybe if I get this incorrectly, it was either like tiny homes or ADUs. So it was like a very, it was ADUs, wasn't it? Yeah, actually. So they had a kind of very narrow focus of what they were trying to look at again.
Do you know what the success rate is of people actually accomplishing their end goals?
No, and I think one of the, I think Jay mentioned this, but one of the goals here is to kind of ingrain some of these innovation processes into the all of our work within the city. And so for some places, and for even some of the team members that we had on our team, it's not about like these specific goals we're trying to achieve. It was just like, okay, now take these processes and lessons and use them in your work. I think for, there's 3 of us from HHS on the team, and it was housing specific. And some of these ideas that came up, we were like, well, these are good ideas. Say, oh, now we have some great ways to do work. We're like, well, we want to figure out how to do these ideas. So that's kind of how, as HHS,
We don't have any resources.
Yeah. We'll try to figure it out.
Well, I mean, you came out with 5 pretty specific directives, as it were.
Yeah, but we don't get to direct our work plan.
Oh, yeah. No, I get that. Yeah. I'm just saying, the measure of success in that you came away with tangible takeaways. Yeah.
Is this going to council? Not that I know of. Okay. But I don't think that it's all been like totally finalized with, so.
What, I will tell you, what I hired information, innovation and technology, IT. They
IT.
changed it, right? Anyway, they're trying to figure out, is there a shorter, something that's not as long and involve as much staff time that they can apply to other processes across the street or across the city or other issues. So, because I think a lot of the people, to be perfectly honest, after dedicating all that time to it, we're just like, okay, I'm done. Because they had other jobs they had to get done.
It was a lot of work too, like a lot of work, so.
Should we move along?
Yeah, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. That was great. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the Boulder Valley Comp Plan update.
That's gonna be myself. And Tess Shorn. My name is Captain King. I'm a principal city planner in Planning Development Services. And my work group does comprehensive planning. Once every 10 years, we do a major update to the Boulder Valley. So this is a joint effort between the city and the county. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the plan overall and the process and where we're at today. And then Tess is going to share our approach to some of our policy and land use updates that we're tackling. Okay, so the purpose of why we're here tonight, we are sharing out this kind of overview and update on the process. But why we're really here is we want to hear your feedback about where we're going in some of these, the direction that we're taking some of these policies. And we will be sharing some information about our approach to the land use map and our land use designations, and would love to get your feedback on that. So the role of HAB is advisory in this process. There are 4 bodies that actually adopt the Boulder Valley Comprehensive Plan. So that's Planning Board, City Council, County Planning Commission, and then the Board of Commissioners. So it's a pretty arduous adoption process. But what's really helpful is to have all of the city boards participating, and then, you know, when we get to the end of the plan, weighing in on the draft, and then writing to planning board and city council about, you know, support or recommendations for revisions.
Number 4 was just the 3 commissioners.
What's that? Yep, the 3 commissioners are, yeah, they are an adopting body. Okay, so like I said, we're going to be looking for your feedback on these 2 questions. Let's jump to plan. Okay, so are people pretty familiar with the comprehensive plan? Okay, so the comprehensive plan is meant to be an aspirational plan that describes our vision for the future. So it kind of outlines where we want to go, what we want to work on, what we're trying to achieve over the next 15 to 20 years. It also offers some overarching policies, some that are shared between the city and the county, and some that are city specific. And that guides a lot of the work that we do around the city. The way we describe kind of the tiers of planning and regulation is that the comprehensive plan is up really high. We're at this 30,000 foot level. We have other planning tools like subcommunity and area plans that are closer to the ground and a little bit more specific about managing change in certain areas of the city. And then we regulate how that change happens through zoning code. Okay, so like I said, the comprehensive plan is one of our overarching documents, and then it gets implemented through a couple of different ways. One is the citywide strategic plan, which is that document that council puts together saying these are the things that we're going to be working on over the next 2 to 3 years. And then it also influences our budget, department plans, things like the HHS work plan, and then subcommunity and area plans. And then all of those eventually trickle down to things like the capital improvement program, development standards, zoning, design guidelines, things like that. Okay, so it's been actually almost a full year since we kicked off this process. We launched the project in October of last year, and then went on a kind of excursion of understanding existing conditions. So learning about the context of what we're planning for, what our challenges are, what the opportunities are within the community, what's our community's makeup, and what are the trends in how our population is changing. How is the university changing? How does that influence us? So thinking about a lot of different trends. And so that was the first phase of work. If you haven't gotten a chance to check out aboulderfuture.org yet, that website is kind of our hub for all things comp plan. And there's a pretty robust page on existing conditions with different topic areas that you can explore and learn some of that data we've been putting together.
Would you mind repeating that?
boulderfuture.org.
It will also be on our last slide, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we did a lot of that work up front and then went into the second phase of the project, which is called A Boulder Tomorrow, where we started taking all of that contextual information, taking a lot of the input that we've been gathering through community engagement and began to set that vision. So defining a vision statement. And then also we defined some areas of focus which were topics or issues that the community most wanted to address in this update process. And now we're in the exciting, meaty, hardest part of the process, which is called A Boulder Direction, where we're actually putting together ideas from community members, grabbing ideas like things coming out of the innovation team, working across different departments, working with the county to find solutions to those challenges that people have been describing as these are things that need to be addressed in this update. So we're working on updating some of the policies that we already have. We're working on identifying new policies that should be included in the comprehensive plan. We are rethinking our approach to land use planning and land use management overall, and Tessa's going to talk about that. So this is kind of the time where your input is really most influential because we're getting messy. We're in the weeds on all of these different pieces. This phase really kind of will be coming to a close sort of end of the year, January. We go to City Council and Planning Board. We'll have a joint study session in December where we will be presenting some of the major recommendations. And then the final phase of the project is really writing the actual plan and going through that adoption phase, and that will happen next year, spring and summer. Okay, well, one of the team's goals, and I think goals that were supported by city manager's office certainly, but also planning board and city council, was that we wanted this update process to be the most inclusive comprehensive planning process that the city's done to date. And so that's been kind of our guiding light in our approach to community engagement. We've tried a bunch of new and different tactics to get people who have not historically participated in planning projects involved, and tried to create some new venues and opportunities to hear input from more and different people than who we typically hear from. So we've done a bunch of stuff. You may have heard about the community assembly or read about the community assembly. So that's an example of one of those new tactics that we're taking. But we've had great participation so far over the last year. And we're really working now on using that community input to guide the recommendations as we go into December. So, one of the things that was very influenced by that community engagement was the vision and vision statement. So this is typically at the very front of the plan and says, this is our vision for the next 20 years. And so the vision is that our community works together to ensure everyone belongs, to create opportunities for all, and to sustain the health of the Boulder Valley for future generations. And then the goals of the comprehensive plan are aligned with our sustainability, equity, and resilience goals and the SER framework. And then, like I mentioned, that engagement process has also been really influential on the areas of focus that we're taking on in this plan update. So we've heard a lot, surprise to this group, about housing choice and opportunity. That's definitely a main focus of this update, and how do we address that? And then you can see the other topic areas here that people are really passionate about collaborating on and finding new and interesting solutions for. And that's it for me. So I'm gonna turn it over to Tess to share some of the fun stuff.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tess, for those I haven't met already. So yeah, this is really exciting. This is like the 10-year major update to the plan. And at first I want to talk about the policy updates. We have some goals related to how we're updating policy and land use. I want to remind everyone that our policy and land use options are still very much a work in progress and draft. So all feedback is welcome and nothing's finalized yet. The project will continue to evolve over the next few months as we continue to get that feedback. And the current comprehensive plan contains 210 policies that address a wide range of topics and community services. Community feedback, including input from the city county staff, describes that current policies are pretty duplicative at times and can contradict each other and be repetitive of policies captured in other community plans. In response to this input, staff has established some of the following goals for the revision of the plan policies. First, to keep policies clear, simple, and resilient, meaning that they have the appropriate level of detail to help guide decisions without limiting options as future conditions change. The policies will address the what and why without getting into the how. And that allows departments to have more control over implementation steps. So some key policy areas specific to housing that we want to talk about today are that we are looking towards increasing housing supply and increasing housing variety and kind of calling that out more explicitly in this plan. Having an efficient use of land, and that's especially captured within our draft land use approach that I'll be talking about later in the presentation. And then also creating an accessible city through kind of a 15-minute neighborhood approach. And we will be getting more specific feedback from that community assembly that Kathleen mentioned later this winter. So stay tuned. We also have a draft policy that has kind of carried over from the former plan about transitioning people experiencing homelessness into housing. And also another one carried over is preserving that manufactured housing stock that we have in the city. Now moving on to the future land use map. We just first want to review what the map does. It is meant to describe a desired future for the community. It guides future rezoning decisions. It also guides initial zoning for any land annexed into the city. And it is used as a reference for any development projects that go through the site review process. These projects must be consistent with the land use map and with the policies in the comprehensive plan. City staff and policymakers have identified administrative challenges and confusion around our current land use map. And community engagement thus far has described a need for change that can be addressed through this land use map as well. So we've set some goals as we're working through revisions. And first, it's to reset expectations that the map describes the future of Boulder Valley. Also to plan for places and right-size the map. We are scaling back what was quite a parcel by parcel approach that had a lot of categories and a lot of contradiction. And applying land use at a more neighborhood scale and designing and planning for places. Secondly, we are working towards unique definitions that attempt to remove a lot of that oh my gosh, I can't say the word. Between the current designation. So the confusion between some of the definitions in the current designations, and also that allow for different mixes of land uses instead of separating areas and properties into very limited specific uses. Finally, these designations would also offer a more adaptable environment for zoning choices if conditions change, and give a wider variety of redevelopment options for property owners. So why change our approach? First, there is the changing climate, which calls for a land use plan that can adapt and offer a path to resilience. The second thing is we are really building into the land use strategy is the recognition that the population is changing. We've talked about that a lot today. Community members over the age of 60 will continue to outnumber people under the age of 18 over the next 20 years from our projections. Additionally, we know that land use and policy choices of the past have impacted who could live and thrive in Boulder. So working to make land use choices that offer a more equitable future is an important component to this approach. Finally, local industries and traditional workplace have changed dramatically in the last 5 years, a lot due to COVID, and our current land use structure doesn't support that kind of live-work lifestyle that we see as common across the community these days. So a lot of change has already happened, and we felt that the challenges to respond to that change and working within the confines of our current land use structure has been really challenging to respond to that. And we are looking at the concept to help us meet the future with resilience. So this is the proposed new draft structure we're talking about with the land use designations. And it has 4 classes: the neighborhood class, the hubs class, networks, and institutions. And today I'm going to go into more detail about neighborhoods and hubs because that has more specifically to do with housing. So firstly, neighborhoods. These are primarily residential area. And for each neighborhood category, which is neighborhood 1, 2, and 3, we are opening up the possibility of more housing types. They are applied differently based on the context, but will likely remain agnostic of exact densities allowed in the descriptions. And the land use map, just to state, currently has 5 residential categories. And by creating these 3 new categories, we are allowing greater flexibility in future rezoning decisions. Secondly, we have the class of hubs. And hubs encourage a variety of commercial and residential uses and are meant to be gathering spaces that meet the needs of community members and visitors. There are 4 different hub types. The first 3 are local, community, and regional. And those differences largely speak to the scale of the hub. But I want to just note that it opens up residential opportunities in areas that are formerly like very commercial, such as like a Table Mesa shopping center potentially, or other kind of primarily commercial areas. And it also opens up opportunities for small scale neighborhood serving businesses to exist in what is primarily residential areas at this time. And then finally, the 4th category is this innovation and production hub. And that really is focused on adding some residential options to specific industrial areas that were largely identified in the East Boulder area planning process as well. And all of this also works towards that policy I talked about earlier of efficient land use and the 15-minute neighborhoods. And then finally, we have our networks class, which consists of parks and greenways, open space, and rural lands, and then also our institutions class, which include our civic, university, and industrial lands. And just as a reminder, within each of these classes, there's a unique designation that can be applied at a neighborhood scale, and it helps guide redevelopment within the city moving forward. This is still a draft. We are working through some edits. We did include a link to the city council memo in your packet, and that has a lot more detailed information about all of this concept. And also, if you have questions, reach out. But just to give you a little more context, this is just a concept example of how, something like this might work and play out across a neighborhood. So a community hub serves multiple neighborhoods by being a central designation. There may be more multifamily development that surrounds this hub, creating walkable options for work, shopping, or socializing. And then some other lower density neighborhoods surrounding this with a network of parks and open space within close distances. So it's just a little teaser taster of what this could look like.
Can you kind of explain how you're differentiating neighborhood 1, 2, and 3?
Yeah.
Because I gather that it is density related, but can you just talk through that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So neighborhood 1 is largely going to want to retain the feel of our kind of single family neighborhoods, while also allowing maybe some more variety of housing options. Obviously with the state, the ADUs are allowed everywhere, but also exploring options of some multi-units, some small duplex, triplex building form, basically to fit with this form and scale of what we think of a classic Boulder neighborhood.
Okay. So, but more flexible than saying low density residential.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. So we just wouldn't put like a density cap on it.
Got it.
At the moment, all of our definitions have specific density.
Okay.
And we want to remove that, so there's just more flexibility. And then neighborhood 2, yes, would be generally denser, allowing for those like bigger multi-unit apartments, and kind of more of like maybe half a block face rather than single lot development.
Thank you.
And then I would just add, as Tess said, our current designations have a specific dwelling unit per acre measurement. The direction that we're going is to describe more of that form, scale, and other maybe qualities or characteristics of a neighborhood. And so just to reiterate, less of a focus on how many units are we allowed to have within this block.
Okay, thank you.
Question. So the concept to me looks like a map of a greenfield development. Boulder is, more, going to be more overlay infill. Out of those two concepts, maybe you have another concept that I haven't got to yet.
Pretty sure that's Table Mason, Broadway.
Well,
We took all the names out.
Yes, so this is Table Mesa and Broadway. That is the map, and that is Everland up there under the city category. But I think part of the thing that we will have to work with the community on is a lot about the messaging and understanding of how change happens incrementally over time. So although the map may, I think if you saw this map and you feared change, it would feel like a wholesale change to what the previous version of this area in the comp plan map looks like. But the reality of how that change would happen is, as you're saying, it would be infill and happen, sort of incrementally, piece by piece. But I think that this structure allows for areas to evolve in a way that meets a lot of our city goals. And our current land use map and the current structure of those designations is much more restrictive in what that evolution could look like.
And I didn't mention it, but currently we have 26 different land uses, and like a lot of our new projects and planning processes and community sub-community plans and stuff like that, we're ending up having to do this kind of parcel by parcel of all these different like community commercial, mixed residential, like there's just so many that it looks so much like the zoning map, but they're supposed to be different and they're supposed to be at different levels. So we're really trying to pull back the scale at which we're looking at future land use into more of these big general descriptors, and then we can get super specific in that zoning code.
So this is such a large change from where you're currently at with the
Mhm.
current comp plan. Do you anticipate many conflicts with the city's current zoning code and zoning designations? Or do you feel like the majority of the city is just gonna fall into these new categories?
So right now, as Tess said, we have those 26 designations. And it's not explicit which zoning categories are matched exactly with those designations. So that's another piece of this project that we're working on, is being able to identify which zones are most appropriate for each of these designations and making that explicit to the community and property owners and everyone, because right now it's not. Okay, yeah.
There were 3 neighborhood types, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. It's just, it happens not to be on this one.
Yeah,
Oh,
the,
yes,
the
the
third, neighborhood 3 is largely in county land in the Boulder Valley surrounding.
Oh.
That's our like low
I see.
Rural
rural
residential.
residential.
I assumed it
Yeah.
was, I assumed it was like whatever downtown is.
Oh, yeah, that downtown would be considered our regional hub because it has a regional draw and is that mixed use that is ideally kind of a hub. All right, and just a few more slides. So Kathleen talked a bit about what's upcoming, but just to plug, we do have our statistically valid survey out. So if you're a resident, look for an envelope. You've probably already received it if you have, but there's also an online companion questionnaire with all the same questions available to anyone to take. We also are trying to get people who are community members of Boulder who may not live in Boulder that also want to participate in that. And that's a way to do that because our statistically valid survey is only sent to residents. And then December 11th is when we're going to be taking our recommendations on major policy and land use changes to planning board and council. And then in 2026, we're going to do our community change request process. We are going to release a public draft of the plan and have a second round of engagement with you all. And then the final draft will be released hopefully in May, and then the adoption process will happen over the summer.
Could you explain what you mean by community change?
Yeah. So the comprehensive plan mandates that absolutely anyone, anywhere can request any kind of change to the comprehensive plan, land use map, the area 123 map, or any policy or text in the plan. And so those applications are available online. I think that application window is open till October 7th.
Yeah, it's
Sometime
kind of
around there.
soon. Yeah.
Yeah. But yes, so anyone anywhere can request a change to anything in the plan.
How do those get reviewed?
The review process is also pretty prescriptive and described in the comprehensive plan. So there are 2 rounds of review. There's first an initial review by city staff of absolutely every application, and the applications that are found consistent with comprehensive plan policy then move to the second round. And then during that second round, there's, I think, some more specific criteria about whether that application is recommended to be incorporated into the comprehensive plan. And then that January, there's a public hearing on all of those change requests.
And then the slide I promised, it has our link on it. So please visit aboulderfuture.org for kind of all the project information thus far and any updates and anything you want to know, hopefully.
So I have a question. What is it? Area 3 that's like by J and like in very North Boulder? Is this the opportunity where you say, hey, let's consider annexing it for future development, and then what that hub zone
Yeah.
residential would be?
Not quite. So the Area 3, it's called the Area 3 Planning Reserve. So the comprehensive plan has a map called the Area 1, 2, 3 map. Area 1 is everything within city limits and land that the city services with water, utilities, all of those things. Area 2 is outside city limits, but eligible for annexation, and the city may serve those areas with city services. And then Area 3 is unincorporated Boulder County that the city will not consider for annexation. And there's some other comprehensive plan policies that describe that the county will not allow for over-intensive development in those areas. And then there's a particular section of that map that has the Area 3 Planning Reserve, and that's where the city reserves the right to consider expansion of city limits and potentially serve that area. So maybe this time last year, we did an urban services study. So there was a consultant that was brought on who said, you know, if you wanted to develop this area, it would cost this many billions of dollars to put in pipe and roads and all of the things that you need to expand city limits. So that was the first part of the Area 3 effort, or Area 3 expansion. The second part, and this is what we're working on now, is a community needs assessment. So we have to identify community needs and make a determination as to whether those needs can be met within city limits or not. And then we present that information to city council, and they will say, okay, we can't meet our needs within our current boundary. Let's move on and do an expansion plan. Or, okay, we can meet our needs within city limits. We don't want to exercise our right to do an expansion plan now. So as part of the comprehensive planning process, we would not be prescribing a land use designation for a neighborhood or for a hub type there. That would be a future effort should council direct us to do an expansion plan.
But like the needs assessment might be missing middle that in theory might get solved by the redevelopment of that plan. So then what's the timing of the community needs assessment? It doesn't coincide with the Boulder Valley Comp Plan timing?
It does coincide, and I think there's also a public hearing on that community needs assessment also in January.
Okay.
I think it's in January, but I can check on the timing of that and send the information back to Jay. January 15th. Perfect. Thank you.
In other words, please clarify, the comp plan update is likely to leave planning reserve as kind of a
Area
blank
3
space.
planning reserve. Yes.
Wait, so wouldn't move it to Area 2?
As-
If council determined that it was,
That's a good question. I would have to check on that process because there's so many steps to that
right,
consideration of expansion. I would have to check and I can get back to the group.
but that's one of the steps. So it's just so
Yeah.
many steps, so you have to make it eligible for annexation, but may not be eligible for annexation until you do a community planning effort. So like what we did in North Boulder,
Mhm.
that's when you would have a lengthy process with the community to determine what are the land use designations that are appropriate and the zoning. So
Thank you.
lots more processes.
But the comp plan more or less remains neutral on that, on those many acres, is that right?
As far as land use
Well, you
designation,
won't designate a neighborhood type, for example,
correct.
or even reference the idea that this is future development area for Missing Middle or any other, just not there.
Yeah, I don't believe that we would do that as part of this update, and I think part of the consideration of that is that the comprehensive plan sort of time horizon is 20 years. And so what we learned from our urban services study is the timeline of financing and installing and doing all of the things to expand infrastructure to support redevelopment of that area may exceed the horizon for the comprehensive plan.
So if you could summarize what's different about the comp plan direction that would perhaps meet some needs in Boulder that are not being met today. This is being an obvious one. Housing more homeless people might be another one. Economic vitality is certainly another one. So where do you think it's going on, say, some of those issues?
Yeah, I think, the comprehensive plan that we have now certainly has housing affordability as an area of focus, but I would say is not so explicit in the concept that we're going to try to get more units in the city. It's a little wishy-washy on that, I would say. So we're trying to be really explicit to say we're working towards increasing our housing supply. So that's a shift. Another shift in both policy and how that's playing out in this land use map is that question of unit type and variety of housing and where those things can happen and take place in redevelopment. So that's another kind of move on the housing front. Related to economic vitality, there's a couple of, I think big things influencing how we're rethinking things like dependence on sales tax revenue and what that means for our retail environment. And all of that is also kind of connected to land use. And so if we're not using ground floor spaces for retail, is housing the thing that we want to see? Are there other commercial ways that we want to use ground floor spaces? Are there civic area, civic uses? Are there things, someone mentioned daycare? So thinking about that related to economic vitality, certainly thinking about the visitor economy and tourism and what the influence of Sundance will have on our community and how we can both support that the way that the festival offers and brings so much to the community, but also helps safeguard the things that people cherish, that people are concerned about with that big of a event coming to town. And then definitely a lot of conversations just about local industry in general and how we're seeing that change and what does that mean, both in how that impacts jobs and incomes locally, but also spaces. And then I feel like I had one more big economic one. Home-based business. Oh, yeah. One of the economy is one of the focus areas that community members want to talk about. And we've heard from a lot of community members about feeling excluded from the local economy and that the cost of rent for a commercial space is too high and that the barriers to having a business or trying to be entrepreneurial are significant. And so one of the new policies that we've added to the comprehensive plan supports the concept of home-based businesses. And we've been studying other communities from the perspective of form and what business space might look like and what the kind of traffic impacts are and deliveries for businesses, things like that, and how that kind of influences the way a neighborhood looks and feels over time.
And then one more big issue that's become much more prevalent, resilience, of course, you know, the WUI, we've been through the Marshall Fire, we've been through the floods, and
Yeah.
this affects housing and all elements of the comp plan. So what do you think the comp plan will have to say about that?
Yeah, so, you know, I think the last update was, the last major update was 2015. So there is a lot of policy in the current comprehensive plan around flood protection and mitigation. And so similar, we've gone through a lot of recent wildfires, and that's been definitely a priority topic for community members so far. So I think we've had a lot of conversations related to land use and the concept of density in the WUI. What does that look like in the future? And I would say that the direction that the comp plan is going is this concept of fire adapted communities. We live in a place where fires happen, and we are sort of planning for certainly protection, but also recognizing that response and recovery are going to be essential because they will happen and they will continue to happen. So that concept of fire adapted communities is new to the comprehensive plan.
Say it's a 30,000 foot, so you're not going to get drill down on such specific policies, but it's going to be referenced.
Yes, and it helps, I think, guide collaboration between departments like Office of Emergency Management and Planning and Development Services. We were just kind of locked in a room for the last 2 days doing the next iteration on the policies, so I'm glad those were top of mind.
Any other questions from Hat, comments?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a question. When Carl Geiler was here last year, in recent years, trying to push on what was allowable with the zoning code changes as restricted by the comprehensive plan, you know, just one of the things that popped up is like, well, we're doing as much as we can, so to speak. I mean, we're trying to push as hard as we can based on what that use map allows. And so that use map was very much playing this role of restricting how the zoning could evolve. And now it sounds like the new kind of complete redoing of this map is gonna give someone like Carl, you know, if he's charged by city council to say, hey, go be more innovative with zoning, we'll have a lot more options. His team will have a lot more, maybe it's your team, I don't know, a lot more options to expand what's possible, right? I guess, is the notion though still that map is still sort of like a restricting thing? And if not, then what's the point of it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I do think that some community members and, you know, staff historically have used the land use map as a restraint or constraint on growth in particular.
Yeah.
And so I do think that we have heard a shift in the community and certainly a shift in the leadership that is allowing us to rethink that map as being able to describe opportunity and be less focused on restraint. And it was nice to be paired with the Bloomberg work tonight because I think, one of the concepts highlighted the need to loosen the reins a little bit. Or what was the term?
Give up control.
Give up control. So
I
it
do
is
wanna,
consistent with some of that, I think.
for sure. And as far as like, what is the point now that it isn't a limiting thing? Along with like showing opportunity, I think it speaks to shows like the direction and like the way zoning can change, so it pushes the direction. And that's its purpose, is to kind of like push that direction forward. Because without that structure, there's no, like, when someone applies for a rezoning decision, there's no like
Guidance.
So this still allows guidance while also pushing towards a future vision.
My first impression is I really like it.
Chip, you have any questions?
I do not. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank
very
you.
much.
Yeah, thanks for your feedback today.
All right.
I guess sorry, agenda, it's not necessarily directed to you, but we're, okay, so how does HAB appropriately participate with this?
I told them that someone would ask that question.
How does HAB appropriately participate in this?
So collecting your feedback tonight is important because we are in the midst of drafting those policies, working on this land use structure. Certainly any of the community events or taking this survey is very helpful. We asked some pretty specific questions in that survey that will direct policies. And so the response to that, I know will be shared with planning board and city council to either demonstrate support or opposition for some of these concepts. So participating in that is super helpful. And then, I think maybe Emma was talking about this during dinner, but attending and speaking at public hearings for these items really directs a lot of the conversation when boards and council are considering some of these kind of big significant projects. So it's really helpful to have representatives speak.
So are we supposed to vote on these questions tonight, or are these just sticklers?
We don't need a vote.
No vote.
But any feedback?
I do have a question. Not a big one. Maybe I didn't read my packet carefully enough, but despite your excellent presentation, I didn't really get the feeling for the vision of, Boulder as a more inclusive, more affordable, more transit oriented, more sustainable, all that. It's probably in there, but could you just say it out loud a little bit?
Sure. Do you want to go to this slide? There is a slide that has a vision statement, and I think that
Okay, good.
the idea of inclusivity is one of the driving
Right.
forces of that vision statement.
And then a focus area we have identified this go around is the multi-generational, multicultural community. So that's, we're pushing policy in that area.
So if I was looking at this at home and clicked on those icons, some language would come up about each of those.
Yes. If you go to boulderfuture.org,
Right.
then yes, yeah.
Not just any.
Yeah, I was like, if you click on this, no, nothing will happen. The PDF of this, but yes,
Okay.
boulderfuture.org, there will
Thank
be
you.
more information about this.
I covered the beginning, but.
Can we go forward one slide?
This way?
No, again, one more.
This one?
I'm sorry, there's one that has a grid of
Oh,
tiles. I'm
this
sorry.
one?
No, not that one.
A grid of tiles, that's all of our work all the time.
This one?
But, sorry, I do have one more question. I had to ask earlier. And we debated this a little bit in an earlier ad meeting. Not a lot of clarity about what the comp plan actually means. Is it strictly a vision document or is it a regulatory document?
It's a vision document, but we have code language that says certain things need to be consistent with policies of the comprehensive plan.
Right.
Also, and you know, this kind of hierarchy of planning, when we evaluate things like the capital improvement program, the requests for certain funds for capital improvements have to demonstrate how they are implementing the comprehensive plan.
Rather than playing discussion to here, this needs to be in compliance with the comp plan. That's kind of where the rubber hits the road for comp plan implementation, right?
Yes, and I think, you know, another big piece of it is a lot of these policies, because they are written to describe a future, to describe a goal, they direct a lot of department work plans. Because it is comprehensive in nature, it touches all city departments.
Is this the
That's the top.
That's
What's the bottom one say in the second column?
innovation and production? And that came out of a lot of that. I'm not sure how much you guys participated in the East Boulder area plan, but there was interest by the community in that area and community at large to integrate some housing options into specific industrial areas and create more of those kind of mixed use industrial work live areas.
Philip, are you thinking like you're about to ask another question or you're like absorbing?
I think I'm absorbing. I feel bad that I don't, like, we've talked a lot about BVCP and how we need to be ready to give good comments and feedback, and I feel like we're falling flat a little bit.
Or maybe they just did such a good job.
I mean, for me, honestly, the use map is like the thing I always think about in terms of what could unlock potential of Boulder. And I'm really happy you're doing this work. And I would love for Carl Geiler to be told that his team needs to be more innovative with zoning after this new comprehensive plan comes out. And he will have a lot more room to you know, explore housing types and I mean, the zoning regulations are very, they're ground level, and it's not like because you change this, that's all gonna change, right? Like everything is process oriented and it's gonna take a long time, but I'm really glad that this one piece is gonna make a lot of other opportunities possible. So that's my feedback.
Well, that was actually one of my questions is, do you expect that the city of Boulder will simplify or make their zoning code more flexible in response to the BVCP?
So my understanding is, I haven't been here for a major update before, but my understanding is after every major update, there's typically a series of code update projects that come out of the comp plan update. So there's likely to be updates.
Okay.
I'll make I think I gave you the same comment on planning board. One of the things that I think might be unique to this the comp plan update is the 15-minute neighborhood. And what I'm most interested in seeing is in the neighborhood area land uses, how the zoning is going to actually encourage 15-minute neighborhoods. Because when you think about a 15-minute neighborhood, they're not all attached to a node. They're not all attached to a place where there's services. They're not attached to a reason to go 15 minutes by foot. So the idea that you could potentially get a mixed use opportunity in what was historically all of single-family residential. I think that is one of the things that will start to really hit the ground with this kind of thinking, is that we want a different outcome, right? We want our city to take on this ability to create places that are sustainable. And by you can walk to a lot of stuff and then take the next level of transportation, et cetera, et cetera. But I think for that to be able to translate it to zoning, there has to be some real drop downs to say, okay, 15-minute neighborhoods are going to be, and I don't know how this language would show up, but some direction to the 15-minute neighborhoods in these different land use areas, so that they in fact translate, as opposed to, well, it's a great idea and then go figure it out parcel by parcel, right? Which is what we're trying to get away from.
Right.
A 15-minute neighborhood implies that, not all the parcels have the same opportunity.
Right.
And I think that needs to be a little more explicit as it trickles down, so that we can get, one of the things with the innovative thinking was, let's get what we're looking for. Let's put things in place so that we get the outcomes that we want. And we know we haven't gotten to that yet. So I'm excited about the BDCP, this particular direction you all are taking. I think it's going to give the opportunity to start looking like the city we want to be. So thank you for your great efforts.
Well, I guess my reaction to that is actually goes in the opposite direction, because if you looked at I would assume that if you saw the whole map and you saw how much was neighborhood 1, I don't know how you convert neighborhood 1, even as they've more loosely defined it, into 15-minute neighborhoods.
It's going to be how it comes down through zoning.
Oh, yeah, so both neighborhoods are also gonna allow some level of small scale neighborhood serving commercial
I see.
as a potential use, so there can be that change. And then the local hub itself is thought of as a scale of kind of like a 1 block section, cross section, like intersection. And those maybe would be dispersed within the neighborhood 1. So it would allow some more commercial opportunities. And the way I like to think about it, and when we came up with this idea, that local hub and allowing commercial in neighborhoods brings the balance of commercial in residential areas up. And then the community hubs, which will likely be identified in places that are kind of already these shopping centers, brings the opportunity of residential up. So then it's bringing kind of the balance and creating a full network. That was a soapbox.
I retract my pessimism.
Accepted. I don't want to cut people off, but I keep it like, any other comments?
Jay, are we supposed to have any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, now we're going to switch to HAB member quarterly update. Michael Lucchese.
Oh, that's my item, just
Yeah.
haven't done anything about it.
All right.
But it's not until December, right?
Well, I think we were going to try and do it quarterly, and then we got a little bit derailed. And so
I don't know that, did you get a chance?
Yeah, can I just comment a little bit? So I think maybe it was at the June meeting that we approved the wording of the statement that I read at city council. I did take the liberty to edit it just slightly since the tense had changed, because for example, that the report had already come out. And so anyways, that it would, I don't remember the exact dates, but twice I signed up for open comment and twice didn't get selected. And then this last time when I went, there was only 13 commenters. So, and actually one of the times I didn't get selected, I was really glad I didn't because it was the first time they did the new format. And a large percentage of the people who had gotten selected didn't have time to comment. So they didn't actually get to say their piece. So anyways, when I signed up, there was only 13 commenters and I got to go. My comments were exactly 2 minutes long and yeah, it seemed well received. I got, I mean, who knows? I had one follow-up comment that Tara said, "Oh, thank you for sharing that."
And that was September?
I think it was August, but I'd have to double check. I don't think it was this month.
November.
Yes.
Yeah, but I would say.
Well, I would just say we approved it in June, so it's
Yeah.
September. We did it.
So like
today.
if you prepare something for the next meeting, then we can edit it and then once the edits get approved, then you can present. Were you not, I thought you raised your hand and volunteered.
did.
Were you just not
I'm
aware
now,
of timing?
for the record, publicly humiliated.
That was not the intent. You do so much. That was not the intent. Okay, how about for next meeting, you prepare like a 2-minute statement that summarizes some of the previous meetings that you are suggesting that you read to city council.
Okay, and the next meeting date is October.
Fourth Wednesday of October.
October
That's
22nd.
22nd, right? So I'll be not here, but in New York City, but I'll prepare something to submit for consideration.
Okay, Michael?
Would it be appropriate timing to say something about the comp plan?
Sure.
I mean, maybe that's a part of your
I'm thinking we
statement.
need to summarize
Yeah.
what we've been ruminating about. And that's the
For
something
sure.
we've been ruminating. Actually, wanted to make a list of topics we would like to see covered in our 2 minutes.
I mean, it could even be all comp plan, like,
Yeah, we might have to have further discussion about the actual comp plan. But
Is there anything
just
at the last?
in
meeting?
general, I guess I was just saying it might be the right time
Right.
for
Although
you
the-
representing HAB to say something about the comp plan, whatever that is.
Although the Bloomberg report gave us a lot of
yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
discuss.
true.
What
Seems
about
like-
anything last month that you want to talk about?
Oh, the real estate, CU stuff too.
Yeah, that's really great.
Yeah.
Circling back to the conversation about the quarterly or triannual update. At our last meeting, Tiffany had mentioned that city council is proposing like a new format or system for us to communicate with council. Tiffany, have you heard anything more to that effect?
No, I haven't gotten any updates.
Okay.
And should probably also reference the, we had a good discussion about the clutch report. Wasn't it also last month? So 4 big topics, 30 seconds each.
You can do it.
That's great.
You have to talk fast. You have to practice.
So I'll get the draft and I probably won't be here to vote on it, but I'll get to it.
Okay, great.
If you have the week before, I can include it in the packet and then people have a little bit of time to.
Okay, October 15th. Got it.
Okay. Do we want to, are there any comments about the work plan that's attached? Any, which there's a little bit of concern that our items to explore is a little weak. So are there topics we want to address? And then we definitely need something to add to November, December.
I feel like we should set some time aside to have a discussion about what we learned from the Bloomberg thing or what we want to do about the comp plan. Like, do we want to just voice our general support or are there specific things? I feel like we need to kind of dig into that a little bit.
Like a recap or feedback. and-
Recap, feedback, plan, object, discussion.
I think for sure on the comp plan. It sounds like you don't even know if city council's gonna hear the Bloomberg stuff.
And I guess what I was thinking in reference to Bloomberg is what information we received, both what Holly presented and what was in the packet. Some of that might influence what we might want to say
Sure.
about the comp plan, I guess is what I was thinking.
Because we could draft a recommendation to city council based on either or both of
Like put
those.
these things in your work plan for
Yeah.
next year.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You will be asked to write a letter, remember, to city council for in preparation for the retreat,
When's the retreat?
February,
Okay.
March, sometimes. But typically, yeah, they'll want your feedback on what you think council should be working on for the next 2 years, because remember, it's a 2-year cycle. So I would agree that it's helpful for you guys to carve out some time to talk about.
Yeah.
Or start thinking about what those priorities should be.
And I guess I was thinking even before that, timing wise, do we need to do something in reference to the comp plan? I don't quite remember what their calendar was.
It's gonna take a while.
It's coming to planning board.
But it's already been a
until in
year.
December, I think.
Okay.
And then it's coming back to have early next year, I think.
Next spring, sort of the next
In
touch
spring.
point, yeah.
But that's more of a recap of the direction they decided to take.
That'll be the final plan, yeah, for adoption.
Draft.
Mhm. So it would be before that we would want to. Anyway, my point is, maybe we should use some of our time in October and November / December to.
I like that idea.
And then, I think I mentioned this, if we want to add it to that bottom of the work plan is senior housing. That's not a topic we've really touched on since I've been on this board. That's obviously important, demographic in our community. Full disclosure, I don't know who to reach out to talk to or anything. I just feel like that's a voice that we haven't really heard from, and maybe we should try to think that one through.
Okay.
Are we doing mobile home tours this weekend?
No.
I have a lot of.
The tours have been postponed kind of indefinitely until the spring.
Oh, okay.
There's a panel, though, that is happening in the October meeting, and that is happening, but the tours got, is that correct? Is that what I
Correct.
remember?
Push back, yeah.
Tell us more. Like when, where, or who's talking?
We haven't set
Cindy
dates
is-
for the spring.
Cindy, you're not there yet, are you? No, okay. Cindy was putting together a tour and finding hosts for the various places, and because of various life schedules, it's not gonna happen now. And so she was suggesting the spring, and that's as far as it went. Is that what I
And then,
understood? I read the email on my
Yeah.
vacation,
Yeah.
so.
Right.
And then on a slightly different topic, Jay, do you know when city council does the budget? Isn't that starting soon?
They're adopted,
Last week.
they're adopting it next month or in a couple of weeks, actually.
Okay. Well, it's probably too late for us to weigh in on that process then, but sort of a high level thought I had from last week's presentation on homelessness is, the budget is a big part of what the city does. How are we going to allocate our common funds? What are we going to prioritize? And perhaps in the future, that's something we want to look at and weigh in on. How does what the city's considering for budgeting align with what we think are, the housing priorities? So that's just kind of high level thing. I'm not really advocating for anything specific, but it might be something we want to pay more attention to in the future.
I would say like a homework assignment for everybody is to think about topics that you'd like to explore. Or maybe we focus on some of these items to address and we start planning some of these topics. All right. Nothing else. We move on. Before we get to matters of staff, I have an announcement, which is I have a new job. I've retired from banking and I'm now working at the University of Colorado in their real estate center, advising students, working with companies to help hire them and doing podcasts as part of thought leadership. I have standing meetings that are on Wednesdays, and so I am going to be resigning from this board effective like now, and I will not be at future meetings. So we may want to talk about like who's the chair, who becomes the new vice chair, and any like do we fill my position or do we wait until April? So it has been a pleasure to be on this board. I really think you are smart and conscientious and ask great probing questions and are very competent. And so I feel really honored and blessed to have been part of this group. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Great job on that. I'm sorry to see you go.
Congratulations and boom.
Don't take it personally, Philip.
No, that doesn't mean it doesn't hurt.
Congratulations on your career move, Karen, and go Buffs. I'm sure you'll be a great addition to our wonderful university here in Boulder. So I'm sad to see you leave, but I'm happy to hear that you're making a what I see as a good career move.
Thank you, Chip. What are next steps? Like,
So we'll be down one half member until council appoints in, was it February,
Right.
March?
It's like late February, early March.
Is anybody else rolling off?
Michael, that's right.
Oh.
There'll be 2 vacancies.
When are applications for the board?
Usually goes out late December, I want to say, or mid-December. Sound about right?
Yeah, I highly encourage you to like recruit people, like who bring expertise or are very, involved or thought provoking so that you have a say in what these future discussions are like.
It can be very effective. I don't think you would be sitting here if you hadn't been approached.
And recruited by you, yeah.
Two very good head members.
So one thing we'll put on the agenda for next month, elections for chair and vice chair. So Karen has agreed to stay on, thankfully.
You mean like the board?
Yeah.
Well, as
I would nominate you to be chair, but I don't think I have a vote anymore.
I don't think you, I don't know.
Now,
I wouldn't have interest in that.
can we do it
so.
tonight?
you want to vote tonight? We can.
I nominate Karen Oscar to be the chair, succeeding Karen Clever.
I second.
I would vote for that for sure.
I don't know if you get to vote on that, Karen, but if you don't, I support it.
All right, I'm
Might want to
sorry.
abstain.
I was just gonna say, I would be interested in being vice chair.
And I would second that.
Oh, do we have a nomination?
Oh, I guess so. I nominate Lauren to be vice chair.
I second, even though I'm not allowed.
I'll second.
So we have to vote on both those.
So.
I'm in favor of all those proposals. Do we want to wait till next month if Cindy's here? But I don't know. That's just a thought. I'm fine with whatever.
Karen will be here. But are you already exempt from voting?
And I don't know, I think I'm exempt from voting. I will vote if my vote counted. I like Karen as chair and Lauren as vice, but I don't know if my vote counts, so.
Does it?
It's more, does anyone not? How's that? So you can wait till Cindy's back.
Hmm.
Does anyone think that Cindy would have a different view? Hard to speak for her, but it is.
I think so.
But even if she voted no, she'd be outvoted by all the other yeses. But I
Well, we still haven't
defer,
voted yet.
I defer.
Why don't we do it formally next month? But Karen will act as chair for the meeting. Since that's her duty as vice chair. How's that sound?
And I motion that we take Karen out for a beer as soon as possible.
Just not tonight, but yes, I love that idea.
We have standing meetings on Wednesday. What are we gonna do?
I don't know.
At a tough close, it's moments.
You got 25 minutes.
Yeah,
No.
thank
I'm
you.
excited for
Rain
you.
check. Thank you. Week 3 so far, it's been really great. I'm really having fun.
I told her it was super inspiring for her to change her career.
Thank you for your service on the Housing Advisory Board, Karen.
Thank you, Chip. I appreciate it.
We can still call you and stuff.
Absolutely. I'm not falling off the face of the earth. I'm just not a banker. All right, matters from staff.
I think I told you that we're finally getting some money from the state for housing, which is very exciting. So we got 2.8 million for rehabilitation and a program for mobile homes and also single family homes. You have to income and asset qualify. But something we haven't had for a number of years. So that's huge for us, particularly for the homes that are mobile homes that are the state is practically condemned in Mapleton. So that'll be huge for those households. But it's gonna take us a little time to stand it up. We just last week, we got another grant for almost 2 million to purchase homes and on the market and make them deed restricted. But so it's basically what we've been doing in Boulder, remember this acquisition program that I've told you about? We're doing it for the county. So we're gonna buy homes in other communities like Lafayette and Erie and Louisville. So we have 2 million to do that. So
How does that buy 2 houses?
So it's part of our regional housing partnership. And the county through through previous ARPA funding is actually helping to fund city staff to provide compliance services for the entire county. So we've talked about this before, but a lot of small jurisdictions, like Lyons and Meadowland, they don't have dedicated housing staff. So we have a program that's been around for 30 years. So we basically are providing that service because increasing affordable housing availability countywide helps the city of Boulder.
Does that correlate at all with looking for those homes in those smaller communities?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we will be.
Okay.
So you might buy a home in Lyons or in Nederland or Louisville, Lafayette, Longmont, Erie, Broomfield, or no?
Nope.
You within the county, okay. And then the construction, single family home and mobile funds, do those go through the TRG?
That is a good question. No, I don't believe they do. So it's basically there'll be program guidelines that we propose to the state. And if you meet those guidelines, we provide the funding.
But there's like a max, like no more than 50,000 per person or something like that?
What program is this through?
So it's a newish, it's a reiteration of an old program.
That the state has.
The state is giving us money to do it, but
Okay.
we're doing it.
I guess, sorry, to clarify, which program through the state are you getting funds through?
Oh.
Is that 1, 2, 3 or what?
Yes, they are both Prop 123, but I can't tell you. I think they're both through DOLA.
Okay.
Not OEDIT. but I don't remember the names of all the different.
And
brokers.
then logistically, how does the city buy homes? Do you have a broker? Is it staff doing it? So we're.
We have brokers that we have staff that identify them. We have a
Okay.
broker that,
Oh, so you have the homes already?
I'm sorry,
You have the homes selected already?
no,
Oh, okay.
but we've been doing it in Boulder for the last 5 years.
Okay.
I think we're up to home 9 or 10. So we're just gonna scale it up and do it. Kind of.
I think it's
I think it's
exciting.
likely that would be directed towards buying condos and townhomes to make them go a little farther.
In Boulder, that's pretty much all we can afford. You've been talking about single family homes are not really an option. We do focus on at a minimum 2 bedrooms and ideally 2 bath. Because that's kind of sort of a basic that we find is more desirable. But in the rest of the county, we may be able to buy something that's closer to a townhouse or even a single family.
Is there like a max purchase price?
Yeah, it'll be tied to basically our schedule of sales prices for homes that are in our program. So it'll be targeted between 100 and 120% of AMI. So this is middle income.
Will these homes be in Boulder's portfolio, City of Boulder's portfolio, or how does that work?
They will have a deed restriction similar to Boulder's. And the city of Boulder will monitor them.
So like when we
So-
count the number of,
Yes, we will, the region will be able to count it as permanently affordable. But it's home ownership, so it's the homeowner that owns it, right?
oh, I see.
Exciting.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're very excited about that. And then the other thing is Habitat for Humanity is having an event that you're all going to be invited to. It's at the Modular Factory. It's sort of after hours. It should be kind of fun. I think they're going to provide drinks and give a tour of the facility. So they want you to donate money, but I told them you may not have deep pockets, but you might know people with deep pockets. Or maybe you have deep pockets and haven't told me.
It's a fundraiser.
But it's also just a publicity event, and the more people that are there and get excited about it.
To the gate.
It's coming up soon, but you'll get an invite. I was looking for it earlier and I was like, you couldn't find the email. So. That's it. That's all I got.
All right, final thoughts, suggestions from the group?
Yeah, it just occurred to me that we have a quorum tonight, we might not next month. Or we should do the vote on the chair and vice chair.
Oh, because you
Karen
won't be here.
Karen won't be
Karen
here.
won't be here.
We don't know who else might be not here. Can you vote for yourself when you run for office?
It's a poor form.
What do you mean? I didn't. So what do you think? Madam Chair?
You know, I am all in favor of taking a vote tonight, but I realize like I'm voting and then I'm rolling off the board. So,
But if we don't.
I don't see any urgency. I think it's thoughtful to let Cindy weigh in and vote if she has thoughts.
And if we don't have a quorum, then we do it at the meeting after that and
Anytime she
Karen
runs,
changes his chair.
Okay. I'll try to call into the meeting, be present.
I have one very small technical comment, and that is sometimes when I'm looking at the screen, I watch the transcription go by. And it made me think that where I'm working, they implemented a new Zoom AI companion. I don't know if that's an option for you, but if you click that button, maybe that's a contractual thing between the city and Zoom or something. But anyways, if that ever pops up, you might consider pushing it and seeing the the summary that gets, it generates a detailed summary that might be useful for
Oh,
putting in the
after.
minutes or for your, putting the minutes together. So I just thought I'd mention that.
I haven't seen it, but I'll absolutely look for it.
AI is gonna let us have a job, anyway, so why not?
I think you're retired.
I mean, he did a head job.
If it makes you feel better, there's been a lot of lawyers who've gotten in trouble for using AI and have been disciplined by the bar. So I don't know if it's 100% the future. I just know I shouldn't use it.
Interesting. All right, anything else? If not, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded, all in favor of adjourning?
Yes. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you too.
Good luck, Karen.
Thank you. You have my contact. You don't have to be a stranger.
Absolutely. Take care.
Yes, Jim.